We'll go over that later. All right, so names and uses section. So we're going to dive in with that. And it's important that transition at the very top of the page there for the names and uses section, we actually do that while pointing to the block. So it's kind of a little out of order. You're going to go from the guarantee. You're going to want to skip the pieces and go right to the block because you're actually talking about the set here. So you're going to say, we've designed your basic Cutco set to give you the right tool for every job in your kitchen, making cooking faster, safer, easier, and more enjoyable. I usually just say, like, here's what the set looks like, and then I'll say, here's what comes in it. And then we'll dive into the different tools. And you'll see it says the first tool in your set. That's when I'll open it up. So I'll say the first tool in your set is and then I'll hand them the paring knife. So it's important to do that because if you go from here to here, the customer sees all these individual tools and they just kind of think it's like a buffet line, and then they're just like trying to pick out a couple. Whereas if we let them know that we're presenting a set to them, then we're going to either help them to fall in love with this set, or at the end they'll be like, okay, so Cutco comes as a set. Do I want a bigger one or a smaller one? So do I want less tools or more tools? And that's going to make the rest of the presentation easier because we're either going to go bigger or smaller after that. So we start off with that medium-sized set, the homemaker set, and then based upon the reaction to all of these tools, we'll either go bigger or smaller after that. So you're going to go from the guarantee to the names and uses section right here. So we'll say we designed your basic tool to give you the right, or basic set to give you the right tool for every job in your kitchen, making cooking faster, safer, easier, more enjoyable. We actually had a group of home economists get together and like chefs and people who cook a lot to design this to be like the minimum number of tools for the maximum number of jobs in the kitchen. So this is really built for everybody. So you'll see how the customer will use all these tools as I go through it. So the first tool in your set is the paring knife. And you'll actually have that in your sample kit. So just take your pen and put a little star next to the paring knife, just like next to the blade right there, just to remind you that you have it. And anytime you have it, you're going to hand that to the customer. Anytime you don't have it, you'll like point to the pictures. So I'll hand them the paring knife. And this is great for paring potatoes, apples, pears, cutting eyes from potatoes, pitting plums, peaches, nectarines. You can scale asparagus, scrape carrots, remove roots and stems, everything like that. You know how regular paring knife handlers are kind of short and stubby and they dig into your palm? Well, ours is like really long, really, really comfortable. And that's what's great about our paring knife. So the names and uses section, it has the uses off to the left, and on the right side it says picture to paint. So our goal is to have the customer say, all right, I'll use that knife first. So that's the names and uses. We want them to, like, the reason I go over like 12 different things you can use it for is by the end of that they should be like, okay, I'll definitely use that, obviously. And then I want to get them excited about using it by painting the picture. So the way I did that on the paring knife is to say, how regular paring knife handles like dig into your palm. Ours is really long and comfortable. Now they're like, ooh, okay, so I'll use it and it's comfortable. Check. That one's checked off the list. So as I go through the whole set, I want the customer to be saying to themselves, like, all right, check. I'll use that one. Sounds good, So see how I do that on the trimmer. I'll say the next tool in your set is the trimmer. What do you notice different about the trimmer, by the way? What about the handle? Yeah, well, what's more obvious than that? It's white, right? Yeah. So I do that to the customer too, and that usually happens. It's funny. So the trimmer, you can see the white handle. So the whole set can come in white or black. You can see that right here. So do you think you like the white better or the black?
White.
The white set? Okay, awesome. And I asked that to the customer too because you want to find out what color they like, obviously. So right next to the trimmer, just write, which color do you prefer? Which color do you prefer? And that way you're asking them, and that way it kind of gets the customer thinking a little bit about it too. Like, oh, if I was going to get one, which one would I get, the white or the black? And the trimmer is great for slicing tomatoes, oranges, cucumbers, broccoli. You can trim the excess fats or meats. You can section grapefruit, oranges, bone rib roast, steaks, fish. My brother, he loves Corona. And what do people like to put in their Corona? Yeah, well, it's limes, but close, So when I sat down with my brother Matthew, I was like, by the way, this one is awesome for limes. You go right through, get nice clean slices. And which knife do you think my brother really loved? Exactly. Yeah, definitely. So the trimmer. So when you're seeing people it's okay to add in some of your own uses. Like if you know that your brother or like your mom loves blank, and you see a knife that you're like, it's like limes is in there, but to me it's like if it cuts an orange, obviously it's going to cut a lime, So you can always add in some of your own uses as well, just to make sure you're really hitting that customer's hot button. You want the customer to be able to say by the end of you talking about the trimmer, they should be able to say to themselves, all right, I use that and I'm excited to use it. That's like what we're doing on each knife. So our goal is to get them excited about all these tools. And the way I get the customer excited about the trimmer is to say, you ever try and cut a tomato with a dull knife? You know how it squishes and squashes and just blood and guts flying everywhere, right? Yeah, so with Cutco, it'll cut clean through. And then it says, have the customer get a tomato. Like I usually try and have them get some food and we'll actually cut them up. So do you have a tomato we could try it out on? And they'll grab a tomato. I usually say, like, which knife do you usually use to cut a tomato? Kind of like we talked about earlier. And then they'll get their knife, and then we'll use Cutco. They'll just be blown away. Like if you, when you cut a tomato with the trimmer, it's crazy. And you can also use, if they don't have tomatoes, grab a grape. And just be like, yeah, just picture this as like a really small tomato, like a grape tomato. But you can go through grapes. You can get like 15 slices on one grape. Like you can cut paper thin. It's crazy. Wow. Yeah, so you got to try it out. When you get your kit, take it home, cook with it. It's awesome. Next one in your set's the spatula. I usually just say, now I don't have this one in my sample kit, Mrs. Jones, but I can actually win this during my Fast Start contest. So if you get something today, you'd really be helping me out, And the spatula spreader is great for slicing and cutting. You want to use the picture to help like get the customer involved. So I'll say, see how it's really big and round, and it's got that sharp edge over there? Mm-hmm. So it's round, so you can like scoop and spread, and then it's also really flexible, and you can cut too. You can cut and serve lasagnas, pizzas. You can slice and remove the first piece of pie with the same tool because it's really wide. You ever try and cut like a pie with like a knife and it just falls off the side of the knife? Well, with this, it's like really wide. It's like almost 2 inches wide. So it's also great for tuna, peanut butter, and jelly. We call it the 60-second sandwich maker because you can literally scoop everything out of the jar, spread it all on the sandwich, and cut the sandwich all within 60 seconds or less. Like, literally. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's just so fast, And it's great. If you're seeing like Mrs. Jones who has like a lot of kids, I'll say, like, you ever try and get up in the morning, you have to get all their sandwiches ready for school, and like you're running late getting them on the bus. It's like, well, with this thing, no more late to the bus. Like you'll be getting it all done in 4 kids, 4 minutes, Mrs. Jones. She'll be like, what? No way, and then you can show her, and it's awesome. So, so once again, now Mrs. Jones is like, okay, so I'll definitely use that, and it's going to save me time. I totally want the spatula spreader, so check. We're just trying to get them excited about each tool. The next one in your set's the petite carver. You're going to have this one, so you can star this one. So you're going to have the paring knife. You're going to have the trimmer. You won't have the spatula spreader, but you'll have the petite carver here. So the petite carver, that's the one we actually cut the rope with earlier. The petite carver is great for carving up steaks, small roast, hams, chickens. It's ideal for cantaloupe, grapefruit, pineapples, eggplant, squash. It's like the best pineapple. You can do a whole pineapple, have it cut and cubed in like 2 minutes or less. It cuts bagels evenly so they fit into your toaster. You ever try and cut a bagel in half, get the 2 uneven sides, you just shove the one in the toaster, the other one gets all burnt. So with this, it goes clean through the middle every time. And it's part of your everyday carving set with the next tool, which is the turning fork. The turning fork is great for turning bacon, liver, steaks, chops, hams, fish. You can serve meats and fish, get picklers or cherries out of a jar. Like that last pickle or cherry, usually you're banging your knuckles on the jar so it comes right out. And really not like on the hot dog. We'll use it on the grill with the hot dog, sausage, chicken, shrimp. If they have a lot of little kids, I'll tell them it's great for chicken nuggets too. A lot of times they'll do like chicken nuggets in like a frying pan. You got to flip them. And the fork actually has these tines that face outward. They're called beveled edges. So when you stab like a chicken nugget, it doesn't just like fall off on you. It actually like stays on. You gotta like turn it over. So it's really cool. And it's got a heat inducted handle. Notice how there's no metal in the handle. And I'll point that out to the customer. Like these ones all have those rivets. The 2 forks, there's no metal. It's because it's heat inducted. So the outside of the handle, there's no metal on it. So it won't get hot or burn you when you go to pick up the handle. So yeah. And no more grease splatter. You ever try and turn bacon in a frying pan with a regular fork? It just kind of like falls off, splatters grease everywhere. With those beveled edges, it really sticks on there, which is great. So that's pretty cool. So now they're like, okay, yeah, I do those things. I'll use it, and it's exciting because it's not going to burn me, So check for the turning fork. Flip to the butcher knife. Now, I actually call the butcher knife the melon knife because a lot of people don't usually butcher their own meat. But depending on the customer, like if I know they butcher a lot of chicken, like they cut up chicken breasts all the time, I'll call it the butcher knife. But most customers don't do that too often, so I usually call it the melon knife. And I'll just highlight how it's great for watermelons. Melon knife, yeah. Like watermelons, honeydews, cantaloupes, those types of things. You can also use it for like pumpkin and cabbage and things like that. It's got a flat edge at the back. So I use the picture to help me describe this flat edge here. So when you knock it into a melon, you can use your palm on that edge and press down through the melon. So it goes right through. So you can separate a melon in half like a watermelon really easily. It's also great. You can flip that over and tenderize your meat with it. So if I'm going into the butcher knife, that's kind of how I transfer into the butcher knife. And I'll say it's great. You can separate frozen foods like hot dogs and hamburgers, disjoint chickens, turkeys, ducks. This will go right through the bone for you. And the butcher knife protects all the other tools from damage by taking on frozen foods and heavy-duty jobs. So we really call this the protector of the set. So it really protects your investment. It's one that you might not use every day, but it comes in handy when you need it, kind of like a spare tire. It's like you have one, but you don't need one. And I've just always found it's kind of better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it, you know. So that's what's great about having the butcher knife in there. And it's better to have it. It's better to have it and not need it, and not need it, than to need it and not have it. Than to need it and not have it. And it's really important to cut food at your presentations because how much rope and leather do you think they cut in their kitchen?
None.
Not too much. Yeah, none, right? So it's important to actually cut food. So I try and cut food with at least one of the tools, like definitely the trimmer, but they got to feel like our double D edge. They've never, unless they have Cutco, they've never felt a double D edge before. So they've only had serrated or straight edges. But this is a great one. I actually, to give you a story about cutting food, my neighbor, Vera, she's like a Ukrainian lady or something like that. I think Ukrainian is, I don't know if that's how you say it, but anyway, so they didn't do too much like cooking. They're mostly vegetarian, and so as we were sitting there, she like was happy with all of her tools, didn't want to replace all of her stuff. But then I saw a watermelon on her counter, and I was like, there's no way she has a knife that can be that good for watermelon. Like, watermelon's always hard to cut. I was like, all right, tell you what, why don't we try out the butcher knife here on the watermelon and let me know how it does. And I go into it first. I always show them first. Like, I went into it, showed her how easy it was, and then gave her the knife, and she was like, wow, all right, I'll get this one. And I was like, the only knife she bought was that one, but I guarantee you she wasn't going to buy anything until I cut food. And then all of a sudden she was like, wow, that was really, really good, you know. So the more things you can cut food with, the better. So I would always recommend cutting food at your presentations. The next tool in your set is the Petite Chef knife, or the French chef knife, and that's great for dicing and chopping onions, peppers, fruits, nuts. You can prepare hash browns, scalloped potatoes. You see the chefs on TV, they do that like dicing and chopping. And
really quickly, like in seconds, you finish the whole thing.
Definitely, yeah. And if you're not sure how to do that, that Pana subscription, that'll actually teach you how to do that too. So that's great. So you'll get that with your set too. But this one, you can dice and chop, you know, things for omelets and things like that. It's also like the handheld food processor. Like I said, it does all that dicing, chopping. Usually use those mini electric mixers, but those things are really expensive. Plus, they take a long time to clean out, like those food processors and stuff. So that's why a lot of people love this. It's kind of dice, chop, chop, rinse off the blade, you're done. You know, so it saves you a lot of time in the kitchen. The next tool in your set is the slicer. This one's got a really, really long blade. It's almost 10 inches long. So what's great about that is if you ever try and layer a cake, usually you have to cut around in a circle. You get that uneven, floppy cut. This one will go right across the center, so you can get a nice, clean, thin slice. And it's really skinny too. The reason it's skinny is because if you ever try and cut like a warm loaf of bread, usually it'll stick to the sides of the knife. So ours is really skinny and really sharp. So you can actually get a warm loaf of bread right out of the oven, and it won't squash your fresh baked bread. It's great for, like I said earlier, layering cakes. You can also use this for boneless meats, like a big Christmas ham, like, you know, roast beef, things like that, and shredding up cabbage for coleslaw even. By the way, it's okay if you don't know exactly what all of these things mean, because I never knew what shredding up cabbage for coleslaw meant, because my family doesn't eat coleslaw. So I didn't really know what that was. And one time I was going through my names and uses section, and I was like, yeah, and it's great for shredding up cabbage for coleslaw. And they're like, really? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, do you mind if we try it? I'm like, not at all. And like the way I learned what that meant was I saw a customer, and literally cabbage is just like this big, you know, vegetable, and you just, it's like a whole thing. So you just like shred it up into little pieces and then put the sauces and stuff in. Yeah, it's like lettuce but white, I guess. I don't know. So I still don't really eat it that much, but after seeing the customer do it, I was like, And it blew him away, and it blew me away too. I was like, wow, that actually is really good. I'm glad I kept saying that all those times because he got that knife, and I don't know if he would have if I didn't go over all the names and uses. So you don't really want to skip too many of these. You can see how I can go through it pretty quick. Like I'm naming off all 12 of those things, but it only takes a couple seconds, you know. So once you get familiarized with the different tools and what they're used for, and like I said, you can take a couple stories from people. Like when I sat down with my mom, she loves paring knives for strawberries. Well, that's not in here, so I would usually add that into my manual, you know. So you can always take stories from people too and add in your own stuff. But that way I'm definitely hitting their hot button on every time. So even if they don't bake bread and they don't layer cakes, as long as they cut boneless meats, they're going to check off that slicer, you know. So I want to get them excited about every tool. And then finally, the last two, this is the master carving set. So these two are used together for Christmas, Thanksgiving. You can use it to carve up your turkey, ham, leg of lamb, chicken, baked ham, pork loin. It's got a bowed edge on this 9-inch carver here. That's so you can get really close to the bone when you're going down through like a turkey. So that's why it's shaped like that. And it's also great for ice cream cakes. It takes carving from the kitchen to the table, so no more mini chainsaw like in the kitchen. People use those like electric knives, you know, so this will go right through. Makes it a lot easier. And then the next tool is the carving fork, and that one's great for turning large roast, lifting a roast from a pan, so you can stab both sides with both the forks, pick it up, plop it on the cutting board, makes it really easy. And it's a very elegant potato tester. And it's also great for carving and serving. The two wide prongs act as an anchor too to hold down the food like while you're carving it up and everything. So the two forks are totally different, by the way. This one's got two wide prongs. That's used to anchor stuff down. This one has 3 little prongs. That's used to pick stuff up. And I do say that to the customer as well, because if I don't say that, what might they say? Why do I need 2 forks, right? So this one's got 3 little prongs to hold stuff down. This one's got 2 big prongs. This is actually, I just switched it. So 2 wide prongs, anchor, and then the 3 little prongs that pick stuff up. You know, so I do a little recap for them at the bottom there. So pretty much, it's 8 knives, it's 2 forks. Can you see how you would use most of those tools on like a day-to-day basis? Yeah, so at this point, the customer should be excited about all those tools. They can see themselves using them. And at this point, they're either going to say to themselves like, well, it doesn't have a boning knife in it. Well, it's like, yeah, well, that's in our complete set, you know, the bigger set. So they might say to themselves like, well, there's a couple tools that aren't in there. So that customer might be thinking like, well, do you have anything bigger? You know, and then you're going to have some other customers that might really, like my grandparents, like they don't cook like more than once a week, you know, so they're like 81 and 87. So when I saw them, like they loved all of the tools, but they didn't really think they'd use all of the tools. So with them, like I'll show you tomorrow how you can drop down through the smaller set. So they didn't like get everything, you know, but some customers like this is right in their price range. It's the exact tools that they need. And, you know, we really did build it for most families. Like they should be able to see themselves using all of these tools as long as you're doing a great job during the names and uses section. So the objective of, just go back to page 6 for a second. The objective of those 2 pages, like the names and uses section, you can write this at the top of page 6, is to answer the question for the customer, how will I use all of these pieces? How will I use all of these pieces? So if you do a great job on the names and uses section, like each tool, they should be checking it off. Like, okay, I'll use that. Yep, I'll use that. Yep, I'll use that. So how will I use all of these pieces? Because if we don't answer that question for the customer, at the end, they're going to feel like they don't need them all. So, of course, they're not going to want to get that set. So, but if we can get them excited about all those tools, we're doing a great job. So that's what we're doing there. Is we're getting them excited about the tools. Go ahead and communicate. This is really the last page of the presentation. We just kind of go over some of the blocks and trays and things like that. So it says the next tool in your set is going to be the table knife. And I always tell them your set's going to come with 8 of these. So they actually get 8 right across the front of the blocks. It's not like an extra knife. Yeah, the table knives. So you can add in your set will come with 8 of these. And you'll have this too, so star that one. And we're going to hand that to the customer. So I'll say the next tool in your set's the table knife. Your set's going to come with 8 of these. I usually show it to them on the front of the block there like that. So I'll point to the front of the block with the 8 table knives. So your set will come with 8 of these. It's your personal knife for every meal. It's great for breakfast, bagels, English muffins, and pancakes, lunch for salads and fruits, dinner for steaks, chicken, chops, pastas, in case they're a vegetarian. I always add that in there. It's also great for bread and butter because it's rounded at the tip. So you can spread with it, but it's also really sharp like a steak knife, so you can cut with it. No more earthquakes at the table. You ever try and you ever try and all cut your steak at the same time, like the whole table starts shaking? Yeah, you're like, oh, and then water splashing. It's like an eruption, right? But it's rounded at the tip, so it's safer to use. And then we do one last cutting test. So it says cut the leather using the customer's steak knife, then the Cutco table knife. So we'll get out our cutting board again, and we'll actually do the same thing we did earlier. So we say first we're going to use your steak knife. We're going to compare it to Cutco's table knife. We use leather just because you might have heard the saying, steak is tough as leather, you know? So we're going to use their steak knife first, so go ahead and try that out. And just go ahead and saw back and forth through the leather with that steak knife. Alright, so like 6 or 7 makes that like rough cut, you know? So it kind of rips and tears. Like you don't want to spend, all this money on like a nice fillet and then tear it up. So go ahead, try with Cutco this time. Just drag back towards yourself through it. See how it's going to cut nicely? Go ahead and push forward through it. So start, and then push forward. So it cuts forwards, backwards. Check this out. Press straight down. Then you just got to go ahead and push like forward and down. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you're good. So it'll cut forward, backward, straight down. And then sometimes I'll even show them how you can dice up a couple pieces here. And then we can actually, this is a great comparison because the serrated knife can't cut straight down. It'll only saw back and forth. So you can take this serrated knife, you can press down with all of your might and it won't go through it at all because it's not sawing, Whereas with Cutco, I can take just my thumb right through all of them, So really awesome. So that's our last cutting test. That really drives home like how awesome Cutco is. So now they know they need new knives. Now they know they need new steak knives as well. So yeah, it's like they need to do everything. So now it's time to get them some new stuff. And then we say anytime you have sharp cutlery, it does need to be stored safely. So we have 2 ways to store your Cutco set. First off, we have the blocks. And down here you'll see the trays. The trays can be put in a drawer or hung on the wall to save space. They're strong, durable, dishwasher safe, and they're childproof. So you have to like press forward and then lift it up to get the knives out, which is great. So if they have little kids running around, I always tell them about those. And then the wood blocks are made of solid oak. The slots are horizontal, so you see the trimmer missing here, and the slots going this way. A lot of blocks are like this. So when you put the knife in, it cuts the block and it dulls the knife. Whereas this one, ours slide in there nicely. And the slots are horizontal, so it won't scratch your block. And the rubber pegs on the bottom keep it from slipping, sliding, soaking up any spills or anything like that. So do you prefer the trays or the wood blocks? The trays, yeah, awesome. And to complement your homemaker set, back here we have the kitchen tool set. These feature a design called the Chef's Curve. Fit over the side of a pot, pan, makes it easy to serve. Thermoresin handles are just like the forks, so they're heat inducted, and a lip keeps them from falling in. These kind of replace all your mismatched tools, so you don't have all those like rubber handled ones, wooden handled ones. You just got it all nice. Yeah, nice matching set to match the knives. So in order, left to right, we got your mixer for whipping eggs, stirring drinks, batter, sauces. We got the slotted turner for burgers, pancakes, eggs, cookies. The ladle for soups, punches, stews, chilies. Got the basting spoon for basting and serving all foods. And the slotted spoon for serving and straining corn, green beans, peas, carrots, everything like that. And we're going to add in one little sentence yet, right below that line, right above where it says in summary. So yeah, like right above the summary, nice and little. Yep, right there. You'll say, that was the basic set I showed you earlier. That was the basic set I showed you earlier. It comes with all of the necessities. That was the basic set I showed you earlier. It comes with all of the necessities. You'll be like pointing to the homemaker when you say that. It comes with all of the necessities. All of the necessities. We also have a medium set for people who like to cook. So that one's kind of like if you need to cook. If you like to cook, we have a medium set. and then a complete set for people who love to cook. And all we're doing there is we're just letting them know that there's bigger options available. That way, if they decide they want to get something bigger, it lets them know. Plus, we let them know that we didn't try and, sell them the biggest thing or anything like that. So we'll let them know, two objectives there. So
this is the big
yep. So you'll see me do it. So I'll say, now, by the way, that one I went over earlier, that was just kind of the basic set. It comes with all of the necessities. We also have a medium set here. So this one's a little bit bigger. It's for people who like to cook. And then we have our complete set right here for people who really love to cook. And in summary, Cutco, it's a great investment because you're always going to have a sharp knife, always going to have the right tool for the task at hand. It's made in the USA with the highest quality materials, which guarantees superior performance. And it comes with our forever guarantee, which promises you'll never have to spend money on replacement knives again. And that's our presentation. So that's my presentation. You can see how I kind of make it my own. I tell my own stories, and you really want to do that yourself too, put it in your own words. So tonight when you go home, read over some of the different tools, think about what they're used for, get acquainted with it a little bit, and your presentation will change over time. You hear me do mine in training, you'll hear somebody else do theirs. Tomorrow we'll watch a video, or I'll have a representative stop in and do their presentation for you just so you can see another presentation. And then you can always go field training with someone too, where you can go and watch one of our top representatives do their presentation, and just take little bits and pieces from everybody, but just make sure it's always fitting your personality and something that you're having fun with and excited about. That's my biggest thing. I just have fun at every presentation. I found out when I have fun, I do the best. It's enjoyable. Customer laughs.
Like you're reading it, but it doesn't sound like.
Yeah, but I'm literally saying every word in the training. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So, and that's really how we do it. So we're actually going to role play that section first thing tomorrow. So we won't practice that today. We're going to move into going over the assignment for tonight.